You know, in a world that claims to be growing more and more concerned about environmental issues, resource supplies, man-made atmospheric changes and pollution, I find it fascinating that no one is talking about the most consistent destroyer of ecology and the most continuous waster of natural resources there is, the pursuit of profit. Capitalism is based on the free pursuit of profit by whatever means necessary. I was in a cab coming here, and the cab driver made a great comment. You know, he was describing something along the lines of business he was conducting. He's like, yeah, there's no friends in business. And he's absolutely right. I'm going to be using that one too. Capitalism is based entirely on the free pursuit of profit by whatever means necessary. It is a gaming strategy and nothing more. The irresponsibility it enables by its central philosophy of self-interest is profound. And while there are many angles to this, let's stay with the point at hand, the deliberate production of inferior products. Think about it. It is as environmentally illogical as can be. There is no reason to ever create a product that is deliberately low in efficiency. This simply means faster breakdown, faster obsolescence, more duplicate production, and many times more waste and pollution than would be required if the goal was to simply optimize products based on the most current technological awarenesses of the day. And this leads us to the final topic of this section, market mythology. So far we've talked about the structural mechanics of the system a little bit, pointing out the inherent contradictions and problems. As of now, through the overpowering growth in science and technology, the monetary system can be considered structurally obsolete, serving only as a paralyzing hindrance of social progress. Not to mention a destroyer of trust, human trust in the environment. That's a whole different topic in and of itself. Unfortunately, the social indoctrination within the market system has created a mentality which blindly supports the social dogma regardless of what we have touched upon. The identity relationships are simply too strong. In many ways, it's like a religion. Taking away the belief in the market system is like taking away someone's belief in God, for it challenges who they are. When you're a little kid, you know, you pull on your mother's pants and you want candy, and she might say, no, we can't afford that. So you have this instant indoctrination to the monetary system from the earliest form of life, because obviously your parents are always struggling to a certain degree, so it becomes absolutely built into your psychology. Not to mention that those that have successfully acquired, you know, a great deal of wealth, you'll find that those that are in fact very wealthy, they will almost always be inclined to tell you that the system's great. That's just the nature of behavioral reinforcement. Now, the three most dominant of these psychological indoctrinations that I want to talk about are the notions of property, incentive, and associations with freedom of choice. Starting with property. The capitalist economy is founded on the very idea of exchanging property in the markets. Even your labor is a form of property in a sense. The world that we know is so bound up in the process of buying and selling that most just can't imagine any other way of functioning human affairs. Property is often associated with so-called rights as well. We use a legal system to protect our property, and if anyone interferes with what is mine, their freedom can possibly be taken away. In fact, there is even an entire industry which is there to tell you what the best property there is to own. It's called advertising, of course. Yet, with all of this obsession over property, very few ask the question, why do we have property to begin with? The answer is simple. It's scarcity. Property is an outgrowth of scarcity. The farther we go back in time, the more difficult and time-consuming it was for people to create tools or extract a resource. They, in turn, protected it because it had immense value relative to the labor entailed along with the possible scarcity associated. People claim ownership because it is a legal form of protection. Property is not an American or free enterprise or capitalist idea. It is an ancient mental perspective necessitated from generations of scarcity. If there isn't scarcity, the rationale for property becomes an irrelevant issue. Now let's move on to the idea of incentive. As the theory goes, the need for a profit provides a person or organization with a motivation to work on new ideas and products that would sell in the marketplace. In other words, the assumption is that if technology replaced humans in the workforce and abundance could be created, then people would just have no motivation to do anything socially relevant. No monetary incentive, no progress is the idea. There are two glaring issues with this assumption. The first is that it is entirely based on projected values, and values are almost entirely based on culture. Nikola Tesla, Louis Pasteur, Charles Darwin, and the Wright brothers, Albert Einstein, and Isaac Newton did not make their massive contributions to society because of material self-interest. Did Martin Luther King walk down the street in Birmingham, Alabama, while a bunch of racists threw rocks at his head because he was on his way to cash a check? If the incentive motivation theory held true, then you would see no volunteerism in the world today. Amazingly, in a 1992 U.S. Gallup poll, it was found that more than 50% of American adults volunteered time with no pay for social causes at an average of 4.2 hours a week, for a total of 20.5 billion hours a year. This is pretty amazing, especially with the lack of social capital in a place like the United States, which is the most powerful free market country there is. The ideology is the most ingrained, so I find that to be pretty incredible. The sickness of self-interest generated by the monetary system, even with this sickness, humans still strive to help each other and give to society without reward. What's even more amazing is that the poor and the middle class are more likely to volunteer than the wealthy. And think about that, these are the people that have the least amount of money. So it makes you understand the cultural and psychological nuances that are created. The more money you get, the more diseased you might possibly become. It's a fascinating phenomenon. The second thing to consider is that while it is true that useful inventions and methods do come from the motivation for personal gain, the intent behind those creations has nothing to do with human or social concern. For the incentive goal is not to improve humanity, but to make money. There is a massive disconnect. And as we have denoted thoroughly, the very means by which money is obtained in our system is counter to social progress fundamentally, for it is based on the deliberate withholding of efficiency. And by the way, I haven't even addressed the traditional corruption that we see occurring on a daily basis, based and derived from this incentive for income, which spreads like a malignant cancer of indifferent self-interest, from product dishonesty, murder, fraud, theft, slave labor, outsourcing, price fixing, monopolistic collusion, redundant waste, environmental exploitation, illegal taxation, institutional theft, societal indifference, imposed psychological distortions, or advertising, and of course, the sickest monetary incentive ever created, war. That is the reality of the monetary incentive. And the final myth for now, the freedom of choice.